Hi everyone, Allison Davis here with the 11th episode of Sketch Support. If you are new to my channel and this is your first viewing of a Sketch Support video, what I do is I take one sketch and create multiple layout examples that have used that one sketch as the starting point. It's always been really cool to explore the different alterations you can make to a sketch design to custom fit your photos, your theme, your supplies, and your own creative ideas. This month, I've got a new free one-page sketch that you can download at scrapbookgeneration.com. I'll link directly to the sketch down below so you can grab it. This month, I'm doing kind of a mini version of Sketch Support due to the busy holiday season. Usually I do 5 layouts, but this month I've only got 3, so this video will be a little shorter than usual. There's also another 3-page PDF of 23 more sketch examples that provide a visual of the many different alterations you can make to the sketch to better fit your needs. I'll link to that as well. And while you're searching for those links, don't forget to subscribe as well. And just in case you don't know, I started doing sketch support before I came to YouTube, so there are actually 16 free sketches from this series. I'll link to those as well, so if you haven't gotten all of those sketches, you can grab them while you're there. And you can also check out AllisonDavis4SG.com to see the layout examples from all 16 sketches. At some point, I'll probably put together a video for those sketches as well. But if you want to go ahead and see the layouts right now, you can do so on my website. And as usual, we are going to have another sketch support challenge and giveaway with the new sketch in this video. You can find all the details for that down below in the video description. We love getting to see what you create with these sketches. So let's get this episode of Sketch Support started with a look at the sketch that I have used as the starting point for each layout that I'm going to share with you. This sketch has one 6x4" photo and one 3x4" photo with a row of vertical banner strips along the bottom, and then it's all framed with a large background and some star details in the corners. What I like about this sketch is that there are many different areas on the sketch that you can easily customize to fit different needs or design ideas. The background, the vertical banner strips, the photo sizes, the star details in the corners can all be adjusted or adapted to different design elements to fit what you are working with. I really like the idea of using these strips for different elements to better fit your theme. I like to look at them as a directional element. So if you are using this sketch as it is, you could think about things that would be moving downward, like falling leaves or snowflakes, hanging ornaments, or spiders dropping down from a web. If you rotate the sketch to the left or right so that the strips are going horizontally, you could think about things that would move across, like cars on a road, flying planes or butterflies, layered waves, or other decorative strips. If you were to rotate the sketch so that the strips are at the top of the photos, you could think about things that would be moving or pointing upward, like birthday candles, trees, flowers with stems, presents, or water splashes. That's just where my thinking tends to go when I see a grouping of strips like this. I like to play into a theme, and looking at those strips as directional pieces really helps me customize them to fit certain themes. And of course, you don't have to turn them into anything. They can stay exactly as they are as strips. I just tend to get really detailed with a theme when I see elements like this. I really let the theme take control of the design of the first layout. One of the first ideas I had for using this sketch was using a circle design as a whole while still following the general concepts from the sketch. I'm still following the sketch, but everything has been adapted to fit a circle. There are 3 layers of circles. The first is the dark brown wooden paper. Then there is a second circle cut out of this cream colored paper. And then the last is the circle that serves as the base for the photos and the strips. While it might look like this would be complicated to create, I promise that it is not at all difficult to do. I used my silhouette to cut a cardstock circle that would act as a base for the photos and strips. First, I arranged my photos on the circle. The negative cutout piece came in really handy because I could use it to lay over my photos and the circle base to make sure I wasn't going to cut off any important parts of my photos. Then I adhered my photos to the circle and then flipped it over to cut off any that was hanging off the edges, using the edge of the circle base as my guide while cutting. I ended up using a 6x4-inch photo and 2 wallet size photos. A large portion of the 6x4-inch photo that I'd used had a lot of empty space, so I had a lot of room to work with that curve of the circle, and the same for the 2 wallet size photos. I followed the same method for the strips as I did with the photos. My strips are cut slightly longer than the space left on the circle base. I adhered them, and after they were all on the circle base, I flipped it over and cut off any that was hanging off the edges, just like I had done with my photos. Trying to create that circle with individual pieces without a circle base would have been very difficult. Anytime I am trying to combine elements to create a larger shape, I almost always use a base of that shape to help ensure that everything comes together perfectly to complete that shape. After I had picked out these photos, I thought I would have a little fun with the snow theme. If you know me, you know that I like to really play up a theme. My original plan was to create one large snowflake to act as a background. But when I was looking through my snowflake cut files, I came across this snowflake wreath. I felt like this wreath style was going to be much better for my plan than the single large snowflake idea. With the single large snowflake, I couldn't find a snowflake that was detailed enough that you would be able to tell that it was a snowflake, since so much of it would be covered with the circle in the middle. With this wreath design, you can really tell that they are snowflakes. The color I originally picked out for the snowflake was this orange. There's a tiny bit of orange in Drew's coat, and I thought it would be a fun color to highlight, especially for snowflakes. It was a little different since it's not the typical snowflake color. So I cut the wreath out of the orange and loved it. However, when I turned it over to add the adhesive, I saw that the backside of the paper was a really nice cream color, and I ended up liking it even more than the orange, so I decided to use that instead. To give the snowflake wreath some texture and detail, I added hand stitching on top of it. And I'm not gonna lie, this took a really long time. Because the snowflakes are so detailed and somewhat small, I had to use shorter stitches, which really increased the time it takes to complete it all. I know to some of you, you find it boring and painful to spend that much time on it, but I absolutely love stitching and I welcome long days of it anytime. It's really something that I enjoy doing, so it's never a problem for me. I know that I am not the norm on that statement. When it came to the embellishments, I swapped out the stars for some snowflakes to go with the theme of my layout. I arranged them in the same corners as the stars on the sketch, but rounded them to frame my wreath design. This layout is another one that focuses on a heavy theme design, this time taking those strips and using them to piece together a detailed design. The first thing I did to alter this sketch to better fit my photos was rotating the sketch. I rotated the sketch to better fit the design idea I had in mind for these photos. I really liked the idea of replacing the banner strips with horizontal strips and creating a Christmas tree out of them. I mentioned earlier in this video that anytime I see a grouping of smaller strips, I always think of ways I can alter them to create themed elements. I went through a few different directional ideas that you can use with these strips. And another way to alter strips into themed elements is to think about things you can piece together with the strips. Things like a Christmas tree, waves, or other decorative borders or shapes. My original plan was to use strips to create the tree. And as I was picking out my papers, I came across a tree design printed on a Simple Stories paper. It looks like strips of washi tape that are arranged into the shape of a Christmas tree. I love the design and thought it could be a good base for what I had in mind. I wanted to add a lot more detail and fullness to it, so I added a few pattern paper strips and some stitch lines. I cut a notch at both ends of the pattern paper strips to kind of blend in with the torn edges of the washi tape design on the paper. I also added a trunk, the star topper, some small star stickers, and then the Merry Christmas title. For this set of photos, I had two 3x4-inch photos. They are slightly smaller than the photos on the sketch, but it was an easy adjustment to make because my tree piece, the paper is slightly wider, so it takes up the space that the smaller width of the photo leaves behind. So it all works out together. The two photos combined have the same height as the Christmas tree paper, so that worked together perfectly. I actually trimmed a teeny tiny bit off of each photo so that I could have that spacing between each piece and see the red background show through just a little. I also decided to add another background piece behind the red paper. I really liked this light, kind of whitewashed wood pattern paper and thought it would make a good frame for all of the details. I also added a hand-stitched border around it for added texture. My embellishments are in the same general area as the stars on the sketch, but I changed them to fit my theme. In the bottom corner, I used a grouping of presents under the tree with a little wooden snowflake and some word stickers. In the top corner, I have two wooden snowflakes and my small journaling block. I didn't want to place my journaling over the tree, so I moved it up to the corner. I didn't have much to say because the expressive photos say enough. The corner was a great little spot to add that little bit of journaling. All three layouts went theme heavy with this sketch, and I don't always go super themed like I did with these three layouts. It's just the way the photos and the sketch details came together for me this month. The first big change I made to the sketch is creating a 2-page layout from a 1-page sketch. After 11 videos of me saying it, you are all probably getting tired of hearing it, but you should never let the size of the sketch determine the size of your layout. You can use any sketch to create any size of layout, and that goes for every sketch ever in the world that has ever been created. It just takes some adjusting and adapting to either shrink it down or expand it out. I extended the sketch by using 4 6x4" photos and arranging them all the way across the layout. With this set of photos, I needed the full photo to show, so there was no option for cropping them down. The good thing is that this sketch works really well if you need to adjust for different sizes of photos. You can easily extend the photos in design to the edges if you need more space for photos. I decided to flip the sketch from top to bottom so that those strips would be above the photos. I really wanted to mimic the flames in the photos with my own paper flames, so I wanted those strips to be above the photos. That's always an easy adjustment to adapt things to fit something specific like these flames. I used my silhouette to cut out the flames. I used 3 different sizes of flames in 3 different colors with multiple pattern papers. I tried to look at the fire in the photos and match the color you see in the flames. I started with a base layer of taller red flames. Then I added in some slightly smaller orange flames. And then the last layer are the tiny yellow flames. To add that texture and dimension that I love so much, I turned to my favorite technique, hand stitching. This is another one that took a long time to stitch, not just because there's a lot, but also because I had used several different shades of red and orange. It was a lot of work, but I'm very glad I did it. I should have taken a before photo so you could have seen what the flames look like before I added the stitching. It's always amazing to me how much different it looks with the added detail and texture from the stitching. It really does add a lot of detail that to me gives a more completed look. To finish the flame design, I added some enamel dots throughout the flames to look like those little sparks that crackle off of a fire. I toyed with the idea of spraying some watercolor for that look, but I had already done all that stitching and it was a big risk to add something that I wasn't sure if I would be happy with the outcome or not. Playing around with watercolor is still something that is somewhat new to me, and I'm not fully confident in my abilities with it yet to risk adding it that late in the layout production. If I had thought about it at the beginning, I would have tried it, but I wasn't going to risk it after all that time and effort. Enamel dots were a safe bet. When I get a theme idea, I typically go a little overboard with the details. I really just can't help myself. The ideas come and I just go with it. So I had these flames that somewhat matched the flames in my photos, and I thought that maybe I could use that stripe strip on the sketch as an opportunity to match the brush in the photos. I used a larger wooden pattern paper strip in place of the stripe strip on the sketch. I went with a 1/2 inch strip instead of the 1/4 inch strip because I wanted more of the wood to show in that area. Then I found a tree branch cut file and cut it out of that same paper, and then I layered the branches on top of the strip to mimic the brush in the photos. This was one of those details that I didn't plan in the beginning, but I'm so happy the idea popped in my head because I really like that detail and how it goes with the photos. Another last minute detail is the border around the edges. I had the photos and the flames all adhered and was halfway through the stitching when I saw this kind of smoky looking gray paper. I had pulled it to use for this layout, but somehow I had forgotten about it, I guess in my excitement to get started with the flame design. And I was bummed because I thought it was a great match to the look of the smoke and the sky, and I had missed out on using it. I kept looking at it and thinking that I needed to use it some way, somewhere. I finally decided to use it as a border around the whole layout. I only had about a 1/2 sheet of it, so instead of backing the whole layout with it, I instead cut 1/2 inch strips and pieced them together. To help it look like all one piece, I added the stitch border on top of it, and I thought that would help hide the seams where the strips meet. The last change I made was to the journaling. With this design, I ended up eliminating the space for my journaling. I didn't want to cover up the flames or the branches, so I had to find a new home for it. I decided the best place for it was opposite of my title on the lower right of my photos. I used one of the orange papers to add a mat and help it stand out a little bit. That's all for this mini version of Sketch Support. Don't forget about the Sketch Support Challenge. I always look forward to seeing all of your creative ideas with the sketches. It's a lot of fun to see these sketches come to life with your photos and creativity. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.